past couple of years, we have seen a major shift in consumer interest in products that are being made in regions like Japan, South Korea, and even China. Games that are coming out of those places are doing better than ever, and we are seeing Western AAA titles failing time and time again because they're too worried about pushing a political ideology instead of genuinely fun entertainment towards their customers. And now Japan's AAA games industry is performing strongly as 5 out of 8 major companies have hit record breaking share prices. I have a few different things to show off, but before I get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, just because a company is from somewhere like Japan doesn't necessarily mean their products are going to always be better, but we have definitely seen a lot of gamers shift away from the Western market because they are filled to the brim. These companies are filled to the brim with people who are not putting entertainment value first. They are putting a message first and foremost. They care about hammering something into your mind, an opinion on a certain topic, and unfortunately, it has ruined a lot of products that maybe otherwise could have been pretty good, but that is happening less in regions like China and South Korea and Japan. I'm not saying that it does not exist. There are quite a lot of Japanese companies who have focused more on DEI initiatives over the past 2 to 3 years because they see a trend and ultimately they're following it. They believe that more money will follow, but that's not really the case. Though we are seeing a lot of companies, 5 out of 8 of the major ones, hitting record breaking share prices. It says the shares of the majority of publicly traded AAA game companies in Japan rose to an all time high during February and March 2025, as reported by industry analyst Dr. Sarantoto on Content Games. This includes major players Sony, Nintendo, Konami, Capcom, and Bandai Namco. The AAA games industry has been facing worsening conditions in recent years, with mass layoffs, studio closures, and canceled games becoming a distressingly common occurrence in the West. But amidst this, Japan's major game and console developers have been showing strong performance. While peaks in share prices are influenced by wider economic factors, the 5 aforementioned game companies have, as they note, been performing very well over the past few years. Getting into Nintendo and Sony, they have maintained their dominance in the console market with the Nintendo Switch and PS5 respectively, and now of course we have information on the Switch 2 that's going to be coming out in June of 2025, so I'm certain they're going to be doing even better this year. And combined with its track record in the mobile and sports game market, Konami has made a successful comeback into the AAA scene, with hit releases like Silent Hill 2 driving profits, and this momentum is not likely to stop either, as they're set to release the much-awaited Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater and Silent Hill F. So we are talking about companies that are kind of pumping out products. I mean, if you look at what Konami is doing at this point, sure, they have other development studios that are working with them on games, but if we look at these releases, these two are releasing in 2025. Of course, Silent Hill 2 is 2024, but look at how many years it takes companies in the West to put out new products. Just take into consideration BioWare, for example, right? They had released Dragon Age of Veilguard in October of 2024. Before that, the Mass Effect Legendary Edition, so not new games, in 2021, and the last new original unique title was Anthem in February 2019. So it takes years and years and years for companies to put out products, and we just see in Japan there are a lot of companies doing a lot more. Capcom, on the other hand, though, has seen growth in operating profits for the last 13 consecutive years thanks to its consistency in releasing new hits and clever sales strategies for catalog titles. The company is on track to update its 13-year run at its annual plans for the current fiscal year relies heavily on Monster Hunter Wilds, which has seen massive commercial success so far, selling over 8 million copies in 3 days. So now I'm sure that it's probably at like 12 million, maybe even 15 million. They did a fantastic job with Monster Hunter Wilds because it put fun first and foremost. They were not constantly shoving bullshit in your face. It released, yes, with some technical difficulties on PC, but on console itself, it didn't really have any problems from what I understand. I remember just reading it had issues on PC, but either way, the PC players were like, oh, once they patch this, it's going to be fantastic. And it was a really great game overall. It just looks like a vastly different picture when you look at Japanese companies versus like Western companies such as a BioWare. That's not to say that everything is perfect, as Bandai Namco Holdings, for instance, recently incurred large financial losses due to the discontinued MMORPG Blue Protocol, dissolved its online game subsidiary, and reduced staff by 100 people. But on the flip side, the company expects to see the highest profit since its founding as the 2024 fiscal year wraps up. So we are just talking, yes, about companies doing primarily good in Japan versus in the West, where things are looking really grim right now. I mean, you have studios like BioWare, which are downsizing, and if their next game comes out and it's a flop, they are going to completely go under. We have Warner Brothers going absolutely crazy with studio closures and project cancellations because other games they've greenlit have been epic failures, like Multiverses and Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. And then you even have companies like Ubisoft, which are, European powerhouses that are also flopping. They have fail after fail after fail. So the market right now is definitely not in a good place for every single company, that's for sure. I mean, taking a look at this, Dragon Age of Veilguard director Corinne Bush gone from BioWare, rumored closure of Edmonton studio, which did happen, and the missing sales by 85%. The fact that a legendary studio like BioWare failed to meet their sales targets by 85% is crazy, because if this was, a decade ago and I was a teenager, right, I would say, "Oh my god, it's a BioWare. I'm going to buy this new game. I love it. I can't wait for it." But they're just not a company that you can really trust anymore. I mean, we also have Skull and Bones and Star Wars Outlaws and X Defiant and, well, we don't know for certain Assassin's Creed Shadows. They definitely twisted the wording there, but that's three major failures. Never mind if you question about Assassin's Creed Shadows. Skull and Bones has kind of proven to be the disaster that many thought it would be, having launched to some pretty dismal reviews and even worse user ratings on Metacritic. None of this is good for the game's launch, particularly one heavily criticized as this one was in the run up to launch. And right before release, of course, they had basically made the mainstream media withhold their reviews until release day because it seemed that they were afraid. And then about a month after launch, the only player numbers that we've heard is that they hit 1 million players. Now, what was questionable about that is there was a trial. There was, I believe it was a 5-hour trial that you could test Skull and Bones with. So we do not know how many of that million were people playing the trial, and I would take a guess that it was probably half that. We, of course, have Warner Brothers and Rocksteady flopping. They just canceled the Hogwarts Legacy DLC, which is crazy because that game made way over $1 billion. I mean, they made a bank on that. You'd think that they would actually want to continue working on it, but no, they aren't. Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League left a $200 million hole in Warner Brothers' Discovery video game division. We know Multiverses cost them $100 million, and they are shutting that down because it flopped. We know that they had closed certain studios and canceled projects like the Wonder Woman game, which initially a lot of people were excited for, though after hearing that there were so many raging feminists on that team, I can't say I'm particularly saddened by this news. We have Volition going under after 30 years in the business because the Saints Row reboot sales had flopped, and now the franchise future had seemed uncertain. Well, now it seems that the franchise is just completely dead, which is sad because, again, I used to love Saints Row, though the reboot was so terrible, I can't really feel all that bad that these people lost their jobs and the studio went under. It, of course, as IP owner Embracer Group previously acknowledged the game's mediocre critical and commercial reception, but this is the first time it has admitted that the reboot underperformed with subpar return on investment. We are also talking just about a major difference in the content that people are purchasing. If you look at Japan, while yes, there are some companies that definitely are chasing those sweet ESG investment dollars, there are a lot of companies that are kind of standing firm and they're trying their best to continue making games that made their titles popular in the first place. JRPGs are more popular than ever. And I'm really happy to hear that, though it is still worrying that they are going to just completely change their formulas going forward because they do want to chase the global audience. We've heard a lot about companies doing that. And we, of course, have Chinese developers kind of coming into the fray with games like Wu Chang Fallen Feathers and Black Myth Wukong, which absolutely dominated. We have South Korean studios putting out games like The First Ascendant and Stellar Blade, which have done really phenomenally. So I hope that we continue to see a positive trend, but I can't sit here and say I'm shocked to hear that Japanese companies are kind of thriving. Right now, there are a lot of people that are looking away from the Western AAA market. They're looking to other games and other regions and other studios. And this is what we see. We see the Elden Rings, and we see like a Dragon and Ys and Dragon Quest. We're seeing so many different things that are extremely popular. So I will be keeping my eye on the Japanese gaming market, but right now it seems that they are thriving while Western studios are dying. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I'll talk to you all again in the next video really soon.